Providing more analysis about the most recent updates concerning Iran's interior, its domestic reactions to the ceasefire, and Iran's calculations for the coming period. Joining us from Maryland, Mr. Justin Thomas Russell, Global Foreign Policy Center Executive Director, and from Kentucky, Dr. Ihsan Al-Khatib, Political Science Professor. A very warm welcome to both our guests to Think Tank. Mr. Russell, good day.
Good day to you, Rana.
Sir, how has the claim of preservation of 400 kilograms of enriched uranium reshape Iran's domestic balance between regime survival and revolutionary defiance?
That's a really good question, Rana. And the problem is number one, this idea that there's 400 kilograms of processed uranium that's kind of floating out there in the public is quite disturbing. However, we have to be cognizant of one thing. We still don't have battle damage assessments and intelligence assessments that are giving us a clear picture of exactly how impactful the attack by the United States and Israel was over the past 12 days. So that being the case, there's still a lot of unknowns. So before we start getting into, either fear or, a victory lap, we have to really look at what the intelligence is going to say over the next few days because we don't have an answer. That being said, to the second part of your question, there's a real situation going on in Iran, and it's a little bit of nationalism in support of Iran. We're seeing a lot of protests in the streets of Tehran and the outlying areas that are saying, look, we're not going to take this standing down. We're proud Iranians and we're proud of our country. You don't just come in here and attack us without there being a vocal response. At the same time, though, what we've seen over the past few years, and especially now, is there's a little bit of a softening of the support for the clerical regime under Ayatollah Khamenei, and President Pezeshkian has a real situation on his hand. Is how does he balance that little bit of nationalism that's coming forward, combined with the softening support for Ayatollah Khamenei, who to this point hasn't really made any sort of statement or visual presence after the attack by the U.S. over the weekend?
Okay, Dr. Al-Khatib, could the current ceasefire with IAEA monitoring crippled serve as a strategic pause for Iran and enabling covert rebuilding of nuclear capabilities under the guise of peace diplomacy?
No, I don't think so. I think that this war happened due to the Iranians not assessing the threat from Israel properly. I think Trump, from the beginning, he's a friend of Iran. He doesn't want to change the regime. He doesn't want war with the regime. And he was very optimistic that he could have normal relations with the regime. Now, the tool that he was using...
Sorry to interrupt you in this context. You said that Iran did not assess the threat from Israel well. This is a question, and I want to know the answer. Plus, you think that the sovereignty of Iran, Israel thought that it was easy to just jump into Iran and make up a war and fight with the Iranians and win this war. But Israel was not capable of this, which means that Iran assessed.
No. The Iranians did not realize at the time when Trump reached out to them and had negotiations over the nuclear program, they realized how intent Netanyahu was on going to war with them. Netanyahu needed war on Iran because this was the popular thing to do in Israel. There was support for it. And he needed that for political and personal reasons. Now, when Trump reached out to them, the nuclear negotiations, he wanted to reach an agreement with them that would be acceptable to Israel and will prevent this attack on them. They did not assess the threat from Israel. They assessed that Trump doesn't want war with them, which is correct. But they didn't assess properly that Israel, there is a new Israel that doesn't care to go to war. There's a new playbook for Israel. And this war happened. Now, where do the Iranians now stand? I think the bottom line, all the questions about nuclear program, they have to go back to the table, and they will not going to be able to enrich in Iran. That's the bottom line. Had they agreed that
Pointing
enrichment will be
out to
outside.
you saying that they have to go back to the table, the negotiating table again, is another question, which brings us
Yes.
back to to where the negotiations stopped when Israel, of course, started the war, 12 day war, sir. At that point, Iran was very
What triggered the
clear that
war?
it will
Yeah.
not get rid of its nuclear capabilities, sir. So I don't think today,
Yeah, that was
after
not the
all
issue,
these, after the achievement that Tehran did or Iran did, that they will go back and say, okay, we're getting rid of our nuclear capabilities.
That's backtrack a little bit. The issue is not dismantling the nuclear program. The maximalist position in the beginning for the Israelis was dismantle it Libya style under Gaddafi. But Americans are very pragmatic, understanding. They thought this is impossible. Why can't they have a peaceful nuclear program? So they moved to a middle point. Trump moved to a middle point between the Israelis and the Iranians. They should have a nuclear program. Let's make it peaceful and let's make it indisputably peaceful. So what do the Israelis want? Enrichment to be outside Iran, somewhere else, not in Iran, because they don't trust the Iranians. And they have reasons to not to trust the Iranians, because the Iranians say that's to Israel. We'd finish Israel in 7 minutes. And they have a nuclear program that they have play cat and mouse with the Atomic Energy Commission, and they enrich at levels not needed for a peaceful program. So the advice of Trump was take this deal. Let's do enrichment outside the country. And Israel was okay with it. But the Iranians made the mistake of walking away saying, no, enrichment has to be done in Iran as a matter of national pride. And that gave Netanyahu the green light to attack Iran and convince them they can't do that. Now they have to go back to the table, and now they got the hint
Got
that
your point,
Israel is winning.
Dr. Khatib. I'll be back again. I'll leave you there. Mr. Russell, does the covert relocation of nuclear materials signal strategic resilience or growing isolation in Tehran's foreign policy calculus, sir?
Well, let's be clear. All Iran did over the past 72 hours was continue to isolate itself with its neighbors in the Arab world. The attack that Tehran brought against the Al Udeid air base in Doha, Qatar, was an attack on a Qatari base, not a U.S. base, a Qatari base, and it violated Qatari sovereignty, sovereign airspace, and it put Qatari residents at risk.
Mr. Russell, why don't you give Iran the right to retaliate to what was done, what Trump did, the United States early on Friday night when he decided to hit and attack 3 of the most important facilities, nuclear facilities in Iran. This was in retaliation. How do you read it, sir?
But Ronnie, you have to understand. I understand what you're saying, and Iran, in the eyes of the world, Iran was going to retaliate, and they did. Granted, they did retaliate by advising both the Qatari armed forces and the U.S. Defense Department and the White House that this attack was going to happen. It was calculated. It was almost scripted. But the reality is that Iran is isolating itself. It has attacked a sovereign nation in Qatar. It poses a threat to the region. They've not played well with others in the region, and there's been growing tension because of Iran's use of proxies and the threat that it poses to the global security position. Here's what we have to realize is, as long as Iran continues to push away IAEA inspectors, as long as Iran continues to not be transparent, if they are talking about having a peaceful nuclear program, come back to the table in Oman, let's negotiate that out, and let's continue that dialogue. At the same time, Iran is going to have to sign the non-proliferation treaties that every other nation has signed except for Iran that's involved in this. This is a big problem. And Iran has an opportunity here to reestablish itself if it goes back to the negotiation tables and it goes back to the possibility of working with the U.S. and Israel and NATO allies in trying to establish a peaceful existence of a nuclear program, that's not going to be a problem. They'll even probably reduce sanctions, which will bring them back into the economic community.
Got your point.
But as long as
Mr. Russell, you said a very important statement, which is when Iran attacked the Udeid, of course, base in Qatar, it was scripted. So, sir, do you see that this entire 12-day war was scripted? Because this is a question that everyone or many around us are asking. Do you think so? It's scripted?
Rana, do I think that this was scripted? Do I think that this was a wag the dog type situation? I don't know, and I'm not gonna speculate into what could be a conspiracy theory. What I will say is what we do know is that there was message traffic between Tehran and the United States. There was message traffic between Tehran and the Qatari armed forces that pretty much advised them that there was going to be a retaliatory attack. They did everything except give them the coordinates of what they were targeting. The Qatari armed forces did a magnificent job in thwarting the attack. It shows that their readiness program is amazing, and they have a capable air defense system that showed it worked in a defensive posture. That being said, do I think this was scripted? No, there was a lot of back channel discussion, but I don't know. History will tell if this was a wag the dog situation.
History will tell us. Dr. Al-Khatib, could indirect talks via Oman and Qatar indicate a shift from confrontation to containment in Iran's regional strategy?
Containment. Containment. Yeah, I just want to make a comment about attack on the Udeid
okay, Mr.
base.
Russell
This is
is
an
there.
American base.
Mr. Russell could answer as well.
I just want to make a quick comment. That was an attack on an American base. That was the message. That was the symbolic attack. It was agreed upon. Let's not forget Iran and Qatar have excellent relations. They're good, really good friends, actually. And the Qataris are very understanding that the Iranians needed to do that. The Iranians are pragmatists, Americans are pragmatists, and the Qataris are pragmatists as well. They have to protest, but they understand the game. They're players in the international system. They know how to play the game. And can you imagine that Trump said thank you to the Iranians that they attacked the base the way they attacked it, because they told everyone they have to attack just the same way when they retaliated for Trump killing Soleimani. That was a symbolic attack. They didn't kill any Americans. They didn't injure any Americans. The Iranians are pragmatists. They know their limits. Now, going back to the regional environment, I think the Iranians have pivoted, actually. They have established better relations with the Saudi Arabians. Saudi Arabia took a good position on Iran. Iran is happy with the Saudi position. There have been improving relations. The only problem is Israel Netanyahu government that has escalated this into open war on Iran. Yeah.
Mr. Russell, do you want to answer Dr. Al-Khatib? Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Do you want to answer Dr. Al-Khatib, because he answered a part of your discussion with me?
Look, Dr. Atib's points are well taken. There's no question about it. Has there been open dialogue between Doha and Tehran? Of course there has. I wouldn't exactly say that the relationship with Iran has been great. It has been mutually beneficial for neighbors so close. I definitely agree with that. But I will tell you right now that the attack on Qatari sovereignty did not make the Emir really thrilled.
Sir,
we saw that
they knew.
Again, the reality is they did know. It was somewhat advised. There was message traffic back and forth. But again, as the head of state, you never want to see that happen. Luckily, we had a very established and a very proactive air defense system that thwarted the attack. At the same point, though, I think that the Emir's statement point out, as did everybody else. Look, you want to talk about scripted? Let's talk about the fact that almost every single single regional response to Tehran was almost identical. They said the almost exact same words, that they condemned the attack. It was an attack on Qatari sovereignty. Everybody said the same thing, from Riyadh to Oman to Kuwait City. That being the case, back to your original question, Rana, is where I disagree with the good doctor is I think that this does not truly benefit Iran because of the fact that, number one, if in fact there is enriched uranium floating around the Iranian countryside without any sort of detectable capabilities by the IAEA or even global intelligence agencies, that poses a real threat as to it getting into the wrong hands. Does it get into the hands of radicalized militias that want to do harm to the West? Does this get into the hands of, let's say, another bad actor country, such as even North Korea, or some other issue arises with this? This is a definite, delicate, and possibly dangerous situation when you have enriched uranium, not bomb capability. The fact that the dirty bomb concept is an issue that we have to keep looking at. And this is not something that we want to continue to see as we move forward, trying to come up with a peaceful solution to a very delicate and a very hot Middle East situation where escalation seems to be the cause of the day.
Dr. Al-Khatib, considering Trump's contradictory statements about Iran's nuclear setbacks, is Washington losing coherence in its Iran policy, emboldening Tehran's defiance, sir?
I don't see Iranian defiance. I see that Iran has been very pragmatic, has been very intelligent. It has a weak hand, but it handled the situation beautifully, I think. They were hit by the Israelis, hit really hard, but they managed to retaliate and they hit Israel, and that makes them look good. Symbolically, I think they won the battle actually by being able to hit Israel, despite that the fact that superpower of the world is actually defending Israel. Despite that, they were able to land a few punches on the Israelis and have Israelis hide in safe places and all that. So that was good for the Iranians. And in addition to that, the Israelis tried to push the Iranians to commit suicide by attacking Americans or by crossing lines with Americans, such as closing the Strait of Hormuz or attacking, killing Americans or injuring Americans. And the Iranians did not take the bait, did not do that, despite the fact that the Americans directly hit Iran, hit hard. The Iranians were pragmatists. They understood their limits, and they said, we have to respond in a symbolic way. So they reach out to the Qataris, reach out to the Americans that say, hey, we have to respond, but we don't intend to kill Americans or injure Americans, but for national pride, we have to respond. So I think Trump is happy with them, actually. And he said, thank you. So now they're back at the table.
Yeah. He did
he said thank you. So can you imagine?
Mr. Russell, in 10 seconds or 20 seconds maximum, because I have to wrap up and you can understand, could the post-war political realignment within the ruling elite indicate a quiet shift toward technocratic pragmatism over ideological confrontation?
It's a very complex question, Rana. I got to tell you.
I like asking you complex questions, sir.
Well, I'll tell you, in 10 or 15 seconds, the answer is I'm not sure. This is a
Sir,
very
what's
dynamic
wrong today?
and very...
You're not sure. History will tell.
No, well, I mean, look, Rana, you have to understand something is, you look at the players that are here right now. Donald Trump, every time he says something that is a direct source of policy, it could change in 5 minutes. It could change between the time that he leaves The Hague and the time he returns to Washington. There are so many dynamic and fluid situations here. I mean, you can see even the dialogue between the good doctor and myself poses an interesting dynamic and a different broad spectrum of opinions on how to interpret the day-to-day foreign policy that's affecting our everyday lives. So when you say, are we getting into a new world? Yeah, every day is a new world. If you had told me this time last week that there was going to be a direct U.S. involved attack on Iranian soil, I would have said, you are absolutely out of your mind. And here we are. So the answer to your question is, unless I have a crystal ball, I don't think we can really answer that truthfully and factually.
That was Mr. Justin Thomas Russell, Global Forum Policy Center Executive Director, and Dr. Ihsan Al-Khatib, Political Science Professor. Of course, dear guests, both of you, I really appreciate this interesting interview, informative, of course. Thank you very much for your insights and, of course, for your knowledge. I really, really appreciate this episode. Thank you very much.